This video is sponsored by Case Filters, Capture with Confidence. Click on the link in the description below and use the code Alister for a 5% discount.
Hello everybody, I'm Alister Benn and you're watching Expressive Photography. Now there's a slightly bittersweet tone to this week's video in that this is going to be the last YouTube video that I'm recording in this area. The reason for that, as I've intimated in previous videos, is that Ann Kristin and I are moving out to the island of Lewis, where we're going to live from now on. Now, this area is stunning. It's an Atlantic rainforest, so we're on the west coast of Scotland, out on a peninsula, and we live about 40 miles up a very, very deep fjord that penetrates into the west coast of Scotland here. So even though we live by the sea, we're actually surrounded by forests, and it feels more like living by a loch, really. So this is going to be the last video I'm recording here. Now, I'm actually recording this at the beginning of April, which is a number of weeks before obviously it's going to be published here on YouTube. And the reason for that is that I'm off to Canada a week or 2 weeks today to be with Adam Gibbs to run some workshops on Vancouver Island. So I'm out here and I thought, well, if this is the last video I'm ever going to record, if this is the last video I'm going to do in this area for the foreseeable future, why don't I just do something, A, that I haven't done before, and secondly, something completely different from what I would normally do. Now, many of you are used to me shooting with the GFX system, the medium format system, and before that I was a dedicated Nikon shooter, predominantly with D850s since about 2017 here. So what I have today is a D850 converted to IR and a 12mm prime on the front of it. So that is the combo that I'm going to be going out into this mossy haven of joy for the next hour or so, and I'm going to try and make some photographs that will be obviously quite different from shooting with a regular medium format system or indeed a regular non-IR body. So come on with me for a last look through these woods and hopefully we'll discover something interesting and maybe cool, or neither, but we will see how that goes. So the first thing that strikes me is it's a long time since I've shot with a 12mm. The world looks so cool. The combination of the infrared camera and the 12mm prime is throwing the world into an insane perspective straight off the bat here. One of the things I love about digital photography, and I think it has to be said, you just can't say enough about this, which is when we used to shoot film, or some of us who occasionally still do shoot film, it's all a craft. You know that you have to get the exposure right. You're not seeing a preview of the image that you're taking. You don't know if you've got your exposure right. You don't know what the dynamic range is going to be doing, and that really comes with experience and lots of money on film and development. The beauty of a digital camera is you can see on the back of the camera exactly what you're going to get, and I think that is a point of entry for most people that is just so addictive, you know. And the second thing is that I love to escape through the viewfinder of a camera. Now, one thing going back to the D850, which is a body I've used, like I said, since about 2017. Now I'm shooting mirrorless with the GFX, or when I look through a Z8 or something like that, looking through the viewfinder and seeing what you're going to get is very different from looking through the viewfinder at a green world and then looking on the back preview screen and seeing the infrared. I find that a bit clunky. It's nice. It would be nice to look through the viewfinder at an IR scene. We can't have everything, can we? So what I'm finding instantly with this is that as soon as I click on my live view, the world just looks fabulous. And I'm shooting at a 125th of a second. At f/22, this lens is just bucket sharp. Incredible little thing for the money. f/22, everything's going to be sharp, everything's going to be in focus, no depth of field issues. So really it just becomes about composition and finding exciting things. Now the IR is instantly going to give you that luminosity. All of this green stuff just glows like snow, really. And the contrast with the trees becomes really quite striking. So this is a video that's all going to be about luminosity and contrast and geometry, I would imagine. Maybe not so much in the way of atmosphere, but we'll see. We might be able to do some of that a little bit later on as well. So yeah, I mean, I just realized that this tree where I was stood was freaking cool, so I've been pointing my camera at that. So I'll put a couple of the images up, and then while I'm wandering off to find something else, and we'll see where we go. Now, one of the things I'm actually finding quite hard today is visualizing what scenes may or may not work with the IR camera. I'm so used to, with regular systems, to pretty much see something, point my camera at it, and get a pretty good feel that what I'm seeing is what I want to photograph. But the way the IR system, especially with a 12mm prime, sees the world is it shows you an awful lot more than you do with your own eyes, which are maybe between 40 and 45mm in focal length. So sticking a 12mm prime on just distorts and includes so much more than we really see even with our peripheral vision. Now, I do know that these yellowy greens will show up incredibly well with the IR system, so that's obviously a really good clue, and when the sun comes out, that is very, very good. You'll have seen me in the video clip there shielding with my hand. Quite a lot of flare on this lens with the IR, purely because it's taking in a lot of that sunlight and it is creating this kind of funky flare. Sometimes that's okay, but in an already fairly busy scene, adding something else busy might not be such a great idea. I'm going to keep exploring. I've taken a couple of shots here, so we'll see if any of those turn out. And I know a little area just down along there which could prove to be quite interesting, so we'll go and have a wee look. It's almost like saying goodbye to some of these. I know some of these trees pretty well from previous videos I've made. It is quite bittersweet, and the sun is shining and there's no midges yet, so that's good. Now, I'm not using any of my case filters with the IR camera this morning, but what I am using is this, which is a variable ND filter that Case have brought out recently, and it goes from 1 to 5 stops. And what that's allowing me to do on the video camera here is to shoot with a wider aperture and dial in the amount of ND necessary to keep the shutter speed at 1/60th of a second. So if I want a shallower depth of field, then I can open up the aperture and dial in a little bit of ND there to compensate for that wider aperture, and that is allowing me to shoot at beautiful 60 frames a second. Brilliant little variable ND filter here that Case have just announced, so maybe check that out in the link below as well. So even though I've been here before, I'm actually finding this really quite difficult. The combination of a 12mm prime and an IR camera is interesting, because a lot of the things I'm drawn to, I wish I had more focal length. The IR is less of an issue, but being restricted to a 12mm prime is probably the hardest little challenge I've set myself in quite a long time. However, I am sticking at it, and I think who we are when we present ourselves to the landscape is a very important thing. And I mentioned this before on the channel because I think it's super important. It doesn't matter how brilliant an environment may be, if we're looking for something else in our mind, it can be a challenge. And I think that combination of not being able to visualize accurately through the camera or even without the camera is a barrier for me at the moment. I've got so used to being able to look through the viewfinder and see exactly whether it's an aspect ratio or a film simulation. So it's interesting to go back old school and kind of get owned a little bit and kind of shown that maybe you're not quite as good as you think you are. But I'm going to stick at this, and I'm excited. So I'm just going to stop filming for a little while, get myself into a different headspace, work around here with just the camera and see what I can find, and hopefully I can report back to you shortly with something worth your investment of watching this video. Well, obviously I'll have to wait until I get back to the house to see what the images are like, but I'm not going to lie, I found that pretty hard. Yes, well, it just goes to show sometimes that setting yourself a challenge isn't always a good thing. I may have actually made something a bit too hard for myself here. But it's been kind of weird also coming back to this spot. I do know it quite well. Many of these areas I've photographed many times over the last few years that we've been living here. And maybe a little bit of my heart's already in the Hebrides, you know. Being by the ocean, the energy, the light, the big open spaces, the big skies, the changeable weather, you know, all of these things are really deep in my heart now. And I think maybe, you know, these oak woods, as beautiful as they are, maybe they're just not quite resonating with who I am at this moment in time, and I think that's just something I have to accept. So an interesting video, I guess. I came out here with great intentions of almost saying goodbye to these woods photographically, and as it's turned out, they've kind of whipped my ass a little bit, which in a way is good, because it shows that I'm no master of anything. You know, we don't come into the landscape to master it and to better it. You know, I think we come in here to escape from stresses and strains in our life, of which there are many at the moment. There's an awful lot going on in our lives. We're super busy, and obviously with the move and things, plus work, you know, it's a busy time for us, and maybe that's just creeping into the whole situation. But well, hopefully you'll respect my honesty, and it's not all popcorn and fireworks in the professional photography world. You know, sometimes we struggle the same as everybody else. But yeah, I'll be interested to have a look at the images, and maybe there's some surprises in there. It's not easy to evaluate on the back of an LED screen when it's pretty bright like this. So I hope to be surprised, but that remains to be seen. So thank you very much for watching. I do look forward to bringing you some content from the Outer Hebrides. I do look forward to hopefully giving you some insight as to the images that I make when I go over to Vancouver Island in a couple of weeks' time. If you're interested in joining us on a workshop, either myself, north coast of Spain, Morocco, the west of Scotland next year, or to Vancouver Island with Adam Gibbs in the spring, jump onto the Expressive Photography website to see what we have on offer. And if that's a bit too spicy for you, then perhaps an ebook or even my printed book, Out of Darkness. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Sorry for waffling. Bye for now.